When Peter turned 62, he noticed something subtle but persistent. He no longer felt as energetic as he used to. His morning walks became shorter, his sleep lighter, and meals that once satisfied now left him sluggish. It wasn't dramatic, but it was there. After a routine checkup, his doctor gently said, "Peter, your body is whispering to you. It's time to start listening." Aging brings with it a quiet transformation. The metabolism slows down. Nutrients aren't absorbed as efficiently, and both muscle mass and bone density begin to decline. But Peter learned something essential. These changes weren't a sentence, just signals. With the right food, he could influence how his body aged. It was no longer just about filling his stomach. Food had become a tool, almost a kind of gentle medicine. Gone were the days of skipping breakfast or relying on frozen dinners. Peter began to understand that every bite could either help or hinder. Highly processed foods, excessive salt, and hidden sugars were no longer harmless indulgences. They quietly worked against him. On the other hand, fresh vegetables, fruits, lean proteins, and healthy fats seemed to brighten his days. He didn't feel deprived, just more aware. At first, Peter worried this change would feel like a burden, like another rule book he had to follow. But as he began preparing simple, nourishing meals, something shifted. He started enjoying his time in the kitchen, especially on weekends. A colorful salad with grilled chicken, a bowl of oatmeal with berries, or a hearty vegetable soup gave him a sense of satisfaction, not just physical, but emotional too. He felt more in tune with himself. One surprising realization was how little he drank. He rarely felt thirsty, especially in cooler weather. But after reading about how hydration affects joint health, brain clarity, and digestion, he set a goal to drink more water. A glass before each meal, a small bottle always on his desk. It made a quiet difference in his energy and even his mood. Most of all, Peter learned that healthy eating wasn't about eating less. It was about eating smarter. He didn't starve himself. Instead, he chose foods that nourished his aging body. He slowed down at the table, tasted more, appreciated more. Replacing just one bad habit, a sugary dessert after dinner, with a cup of herbal tea or a piece of dark chocolate with nuts, felt empowering. In time, Peter saw changes not just in his waistline, but in his sense of control. Eating well after 60 wasn't a diet. It was a daily act of self-respect, a decision to support the only body he would ever have. When Margaret moved into her smaller cottage after retirement, she took up gardening to keep herself busy. What began as a pastime soon became a passion, and her backyard blossomed into a vibrant patchwork of green. Rows of spinach, parsley, broccoli, and even a few Brussels sprouts lined her modest garden beds. She would often smile and say, "These aren't just plants, they're my medicine." Margaret, now 73, had learned through her own health journey that green vegetables weren't optional. After a scare with her bone density levels, her doctor explained the importance of vitamin K, found abundantly in dark leafy greens. "It's not just calcium you need," he had said gently. "Think of vitamin K as the key that helps lock the calcium into your bones." That simple metaphor stayed with her. Each morning, she would pick fresh greens for her breakfast omelet. Usually, spinach or kale, lightly sautéed with olive oil. She noticed her digestion improved, and she felt lighter throughout the day. Fiber from the vegetables kept her regular, and over time, her cholesterol levels started to settle into healthier ranges. She didn't need pills to feel better. She needed balance on her plate. What surprised Margaret most was how adding more greens actually reduced her cravings for processed snacks. A plate filled with color, steamed broccoli, roasted carrots, A sprinkle of fresh dill was both comforting and satisfying. She learned to love the natural flavors, enhanced only with a dash of lemon or a pinch of garlic. Even when she didn't feel like cooking, she'd blend a quick green smoothie with frozen spinach, banana, and plain yogurt. It was easy, fast, and felt like a treat. For dinner, she often tossed together a warm salad, sautéed Brussels sprouts, with slivered almonds or roasted zucchini with herbs. Margaret also kept bags of frozen vegetables in her freezer, just in case, and used them frequently when she didn't have fresh produce. Her only rule was simple: don't overcook. She'd read that boiling vegetables too long drains their nutrients, so she kept things crisp and vibrant. She began sharing extra greens with her neighbors, wrapping small bunches of parsley or arugula in paper towels with handwritten notes. Her little garden became a way not only to nourish herself, but also to connect with others. One neighbor even began adding spinach to his morning eggs after tasting hers. Through it all, Margaret discovered that vegetables weren't just good for her. They made her feel good. More than that, they reminded her of something profound. Nature had already given her what she needed to stay strong, clear-minded, and joyful. All she had to do was say yes to it, one meal at a time. Edward had always had a sweet tooth. Even in his younger days, dessert was the highlight of every meal. A slice of pie, a scoop of ice cream, or a sugary pastry with his afternoon tea. But after turning 65 and being diagnosed with prediabetes, he found himself standing in his kitchen, staring at a cupboard full of cookies he could no longer enjoy without worry. At first, the idea of giving up sweets felt like losing a part of his identity. Then his daughter Emma, a nutritionist, suggested a simple shift. "You don't have to give up sweetness, Dad. Just find it in better places." She introduced him to the bright, natural flavors of fruits and berries. Skeptical but curious, Edward began keeping apples and oranges in a bowl on his table and small containers of frozen blueberries in his freezer. To his surprise, he didn't miss the cookies as much as he expected. Each morning, Edward prepared a small bowl of oatmeal and topped it with sliced banana and a handful of raspberries. He found that the gentle sweetness of the fruit was not only satisfying, but gave him a steadier kind of energy. Unlike sugar, which spiked and crashed, berries seemed to lift his mood and focus without the aftermath. "This tastes like breakfast from my childhood," he once told Emma, smiling through a mouthful of warm oats. Midday, he often reached for a pear or a kiwi, enjoying their juiciness and texture. He discovered that combining fruit with protein, like apple slices with a smear of peanut butter or a small handful of almonds with dried apricots, left him fuller, calmer, and less likely to raid the fridge later. These small habits helped him avoid the blood sugar swings that used to leave him tired and irritable. Over time, Edward became something of a fruit enthusiast. He learned to choose produce in season, appreciating the crispness of autumn apples and the sweetness of summer melons. One of his favorite discoveries was the simple joy of a fruit salad with a few mint leaves and a sprinkle of crushed walnuts. It became his new dessert, one he felt proud to share when friends came over. He also learned to be cautious with juices. Though labeled as healthy, many were stripped of fiber and packed with hidden sugars. Instead, he preferred to eat fruits, whole, enjoying the natural pace and satisfaction of chewing. "Let your teeth do the work," he joked. By embracing fruit not just as a snack, but as a daily ritual, Edward felt he had regained control without sacrifice. He still loved sweetness, but now it came with vitamins, fiber, and a sense of well-being he hadn't known before. Helen had always been an active woman. Even into her late 60s, she enjoyed long walks, gentle yoga, and tending to her flower beds. But after a minor fall while hiking a wooded trail, she found herself struggling to regain her strength. Her doctor's words echoed in her mind. At your age, muscle recovery takes longer, and protein becomes even more essential. This wasn't something Helen had ever paid much attention to. She had assumed that protein was for athletes or bodybuilders, not someone her age. But as she researched and talked with a dietitian, she began to understand just how vital it was. Not only for rebuilding muscle, but also for maintaining energy, a strong immune system, and even mental clarity. It wasn't about bulking up. It was about staying steady and resilient. Helen began making small changes to her meals. Breakfast became a chance to nourish herself with purpose. Scrambled eggs with spinach and a slice of whole grain toast, or Greek yogurt with berries and a sprinkle of seeds. She started adding chickpeas or lentils to her lunchtime soups and salads, and included grilled chicken, tofu, or fish at dinner. These additions didn't make her meals heavier, they made them more satisfying. At first, she worried that she wasn't eating enough protein, so she started tracking her meals for a few weeks. What she noticed was eye-opening. On days when she ate more protein, she had fewer cravings, more stable energy, and less afternoon fatigue. Her recovery from minor strains or bruises was faster, and she felt steadier on her feet. Fish became a favorite. Helen especially enjoyed salmon, baked with herbs and lemon, served with roasted vegetables. She also discovered sardines and mackerel, affordable, convenient, and rich in omega-3s, which her doctor said supported both her heart and her brain. Twice a week, she made sure to include fish in her plan, often sharing meals with her neighbor, Thomas, who began doing the same. She didn't forget plant-based sources either. A warm bowl of lentil stew or a simple quinoa salad became comfort food on chilly evenings. Even nuts and seeds, added to snacks or breakfast, offered a protein boost in small, delicious bites. What mattered most, Helen realized, was consistency. It wasn't about counting grams or following strict rules. It was about giving her body the building blocks it needed, meal by meal. And in doing so, she didn't just regain strength, she gained confidence. With each passing week, Helen felt a little more like herself again. Not just surviving, but thriving, with food as her quiet ally, helping her body keep up with the life she still wanted to live. George had always been cautious with food, especially after turning 70. But when his cardiologist mentioned that not all fats were harmful, and that some were, in fact, vital for heart health, he was both surprised and curious. The right fats, the doctor had said, are like oil for your engine. They keep everything running smoothly. For years, George had avoided anything that sounded remotely fatty, assuming it would clog his arteries or raise his cholesterol. He cooked with minimal oil, skipped nuts, and rarely touched avocados. But new information changed his outlook. He learned that unsaturated fats, especially those rich in omega-3s, actually helped reduce inflammation, support brain health, and protect his heart. He began slowly, introducing olive oil into his cooking more generously. Instead of dry salads, he started drizzling a spoonful of cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil, sometimes with a splash of lemon juice. The flavor alone was a revelation. It made the vegetables come alive and left him feeling satisfied without heaviness. Next, he added avocados. At first, he was unsure how to use them, but after a few tries, they became a staple. He spread mashed avocado on whole grain toast in the morning, topped it with a poached egg or a sprinkle of pumpkin seeds, and found it kept him full until lunch. Sometimes he sliced it into his salads or made a quick guacamole to enjoy with. Raw vegetables. Nuts were another welcome addition. A small handful of almonds or walnuts between meals gave him a crunchy, satisfying snack that didn't spike his blood sugar. He even kept a small container of mixed nuts in his jacket pocket when he went on long walks in case hunger struck. The healthy fats helped keep his energy steady, and he didn't feel the need to reach for sugary snacks anymore. Fish became a central part of his weekly plan. Grilled salmon or sardines with steamed greens and brown rice made for simple, nourishing dinners. He appreciated that fish was not only light on the stomach, but full of flavor and benefits. His memory felt sharper, and his mood more even. Benefits he hadn't expected, but deeply appreciated. One lesson stood out: moderation. George learned that with fats, quality mattered more than quantity. A teaspoon of good oil, a few slices of avocado, or a small serving of fish was enough. He avoided fried foods, margarine, and processed snacks with hidden trans fats, understanding that these worked against the balance he was striving for. In embracing healthy fats, George didn't just change his diet, he changed his perspective. Food, once feared, became a quiet source of strength, offering comfort, protection, and the resilience he needed to age with grace. Rose had never paid much attention to grains. Growing up, bread was bread, and rice was just a side dish. But after her 75th birthday, she began to experience frequent bloating and irregular digestion. Some days, she would skip meals entirely, unsure of what her body could tolerate. When her doctor suggested increasing fiber through whole grains, Rose was skeptical. "Isn't fiber just in vegetables?" she asked. The answer opened a door she never expected. Whole grains, as she soon learned, were far more than just filler. Unlike refined grains, which had most of their nutrients stripped away, whole grains contained fiber, B vitamins, and essential minerals that supported her digestion, heart, and even her blood sugar levels. Curious and open to change, Rose decided to give it a try. She started with oatmeal. At first, she made it plain, unsure how her stomach would react. But as she grew comfortable, she added chopped apples, cinnamon, and a few walnuts. The combination was warming and soothing, and for the first time in weeks, she felt satisfied without feeling heavy. It became her daily ritual, easy to prepare, easy to digest, and comforting. Gradually, Rose explored more grains. She learned to cook quinoa, which she mixed with roasted vegetables and olive oil for a light lunch. Barley became her go-to base for soups, and brown rice replaced the white rice she used to make with dinner. Each change was small, but the benefits accumulated. Her digestion stabilized, her energy felt more even, and her appetite returned. One thing she quickly realized was that water mattered. Fiber needs fluid, her dietitian reminded her. Without enough water, fiber could cause discomfort instead of relief. Rose started keeping a pitcher of water on the kitchen counter and took small sips throughout the day, especially with meals. It made all the difference. She also began baking with whole grain flour. Simple muffins with oats, mashed banana, and a handful of berries. They became her afternoon treat, better than any store-bought snack, and filled her home with the scent of something nourishing. Even her grandchildren enjoyed them when they visited. Rose didn't overhaul her diet overnight. She introduced whole grains slowly, paid attention to how her body responded, and adjusted accordingly. In doing so, she discovered not only better digestion, but also a sense of control she hadn't felt in years. Whole grains weren't just good for her body. They gave her back the joy of eating. She no longer feared mealtimes. Instead, she embraced them with a quiet confidence, knowing that each choice she made was helping her live with strength and dignity. Clara, at 78, was often asked how she managed to stay so clear-minded and energetic. She would smile and say, "I drink water like it's my job, and I season my life with love." It sounded poetic, but there was truth in every word. Over the years, Clara had learned that the small things, hydration, gentle seasoning, and mindful eating, made the biggest difference. Like many older adults, Clara didn't always feel thirsty. Some days would pass with just a cup of tea and a few sips of juice, leaving her tired and achy without understanding why. Her doctor gently explained that the sense of thirst dulls with age, but the need for water does not. Dehydration can cloud the mind, strain the kidneys, and dry out the joints. So Clara made hydration a habit. A glass of water by the bed, a tanbidi bottle in her bag, and a timer on her phone every hour reminded her to take a sip. It wasn't a chore. It became an act of care. But water wasn't her only discovery. As she moved away from heavy salt and sugar, Clara found joy in spices. Her kitchen cabinet became a garden of healing. Turmeric for its anti-inflammatory power, cinnamon to help regulate blood sugar, ginger to ease digestion, and garlic to support her immune system. These weren't just flavors, they were friends to her body. She sprinkled turmeric into soups and rice, added cinnamon to morning oats, and used fresh ginger in tea when she felt sluggish. Even her roasted vegetables became more exciting with cumin and smoked paprika. Clara noticed that reducing salt actually made her taste buds more alive, not less. When you use herbs and spices well, she said, you don't miss the salt, you forget it ever mattered. Still, the most powerful lesson she learned was about balance. Clara didn't count calories or follow strict diets. Instead, she listened. She noticed how she felt after meals, respected her fullness, and never rushed. Eating slowly gave her time to enjoy the texture, the warmth, the company, when there was someone to share with, and the quiet ritual of nourishment when she ate alone. She often said that aging wasn't about limitation, but attention, paying attention to what her body needed, what foods gave her energy, and what habits drained her. That was her secret. She believed in kindness at the table, not punishment. No forbidden foods, just thoughtful choices. And so, Clara aged with clarity and lightness, not by chasing youth, but by embracing wisdom. Through water, spices, and gentle moderation, she turned every meal into a quiet celebration of life, one sip and one bite at a time.